Hey, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Local Leaders, the podcast. And you may recognize this guy sitting across from me. He's been a fixture in Livingston Parish for a little while. Three-term parish president Layton Ricks is joining us. First of all, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
My goal for this podcast was basically to get an overview of everything you've kind of accomplished and done for Livingston Parish over these past 12 years now. One thing unique to our parish is it ain't always been easy for you. Let's say that. Floods, Storm City, we've been real lucky these past couple of cycles for the hurricane season but Ida, the last major one to come through here, and of course that's years, right?
Yeah.
But you're dealing with that.
Yeah. Well, I've joked, Sheriff Ard and I have picked at one another through the years. It seems like we've had every disaster thrown at us that you can have, with the exception of an earthquake, and we're scared to talk about that. But we certainly don't want that.
No, we don't.
And I can't think of a better partner to have through these disasters than what he has been.
Yes.
But we have, and it's been very, it's emotional to the point that it's just unbelievable. The 2016 flood, I don't know that any of us will ever completely get past that emotionally. Money-wise, it's tough to get money to do projects. We were very, very fortunate through the efforts of Homeland Security Director Mark Harrell to get a lot of funding, and through Governor John Bell Edwards, actually, at the end of the day. And, of course, I give our state and federal reps a lot of credit as well, Congressman Graves and Senator Kennedy and Cassidy, because they were able to get some funding that we were able to utilize in Livingston Parish to the tune of roughly $60 million.
Huge.
And, of course, Hurricane Ida comes right on the heels of getting all that waterway work done, all that roadside way cleaned up. Hurricane Ida comes, and here we go again. It was completely stopped up, all the waterways. And then FEMA didn't want to pay for that round because they had just paid. So, again, I give credit to Mark. He went to work, and we were able to get some funding through NRCS. And we were about wrapped up most of that waterway cleanup now.
Absolutely.
And to the tune of another $40 million worth.
That's fantastic.
There's a lot of money that's required, a lot of red tape you go through to get it, and you got to know what you're doing to get it. And having someone like him has made a big difference for not only for me, but obviously for Livingston Parish.
Yeah, it really has. And people may not realize it's a fight. The money's available, but getting it in your hands, whole nother story. They don't just turn those millions and millions of dollars over.
Well, that's exactly right. And just in for instance, there's 64 parishes, and when you're talking to Governor Edwards about what you feel like your share should be, he's reminding you of how many other parishes are calling him, telling him what their share is.
Yes.
And so we just felt really blessed. Obviously, we felt like we deserved more. But I'm sure each parish felt like they deserved more.
Absolutely.
And you never want it on the heels of the disaster. But we didn't have to get it, and we did. So I feel very blessed, and I'm very thankful that we were able to get that and do the work. It has made a difference, and we're about to start this project on the Amite River that I think everyone has been waiting on.
Yeah.
We'll probably top $15 million on that. That should start this week or next week.
Yes.
Some snagging and clearing.
Yep.
That's going to help a lot of people, especially on the west side of the parish, because when that Amite fills up, obviously, but through the years, nothing's really been done to the Amite.
Yeah.
That's going to be a huge project, I think, for the parish. So I'm looking forward to getting that one done.
Needed and well worth it. And we even had a disaster mixed in there, an ice storm in the middle.
Yeah.
Who would think that in South Louisiana?
Well, I mean, exactly. And I'm looking around and I'm like, wow, I lost power. Everybody lost power in 2000.
Pipes busting everywhere.
And I'm getting these calls and I'm going, I don't know. I don't know. Because I didn't know what to do about it.
No.
What do you do about the pipes busted and all that? So, again, we just went to work and worked our way through it. Entergy and Demco really stepped up for the parish. But I've learned through these disasters, Jim, no matter what you do, it's not fast enough.
Yeah.
But that's human nature, and I get that. I mean, I have family all over this parish, so they're hollering just as well as everybody else is. Come get me, rescue me, please take care of me. What's happening here, Dad, and that kind of stuff. So I get the complaints, and that's just part of the job.
Yeah.
But we've done a lot with the money we've been able to get, and so I hope to leave the waterways at least when we go out of office in a lot better shape than what they have been.
Yep.
And again, it was on the heels of a disaster, and you hate that, but at least we utilized the funds right.
I agree. And, people, your elected officials will come out very publicly when there's disasters and things of that nature. But behind the scenes with the business side of the parish, you handle a lot of that too. And have, in my opinion, done a great job.
Well, I appreciate that. I've been very blessed to be surrounded by a great group of employees. And I've always said this, I work with them, they work with me, they don't work for me. We all work for the people in the parish. Yeah. I've told this story many years ago, but when I first got elected, Channel, and I better not call this a TV station, but one of the stations came out and said, Mr. Ricks, what's it like to be the boss of, at that time, 130,000 people? And I said, you got it backwards. I said, I got 130,000 bosses. I said, if I ever start looking at it like what you're saying, I'll be a one-termer and I'll be in trouble, because you got to remember, you're here to serve the people. They don't serve you. Right. But I've been very blessed to be surrounded by employees that have done, I think, a great job for the people in the parish. All my directors started with me, are still with me. Yes. And that is just a blessing, Jim.
How about
they know me and I know them, and so we've worked very well together.
Yeah, and over that length of time, you become like family. I mean,
you do.
I used to I used to tell my wife all the time in my other life, when I was an outside sales rep for a paint company, I was there 25 years, and I spent as much time or more with them than my actual family, building a career. Yeah. And you really get to know each other and work well with each other, hopefully. Jennifer Myers, she's done great work for you.
Oh, my
from
goodness.
The finance side.
Well, she came in, and I've picked and joked about Jennifer through the years. She's very strong, very strong-willed, very determined that she knows what she's doing, and her work has proved through the years that she does. She took an audit when we walked in to 60-plus findings down to 0 all these years, and so her work has spoke for itself. But I've picked through the years because I'm not a finance person.
Yep.
And when somebody tells me they need something, I want to go get it for them. Or if someone in the parish tells me they want us to do something, I want to go do it. And I've relied on her. And true to form, she has told me no, just like she'll tell any of my directors that come to her. If it's not in the budget, she'll tell them she has no problem telling them no. And she treats me and talks to me just like she does anybody else out there. Just because I'm parish president has never meant anything to her. Yeah. And I've picked at her about that through the years. And one day we were really going at it back and forth in her office, to the point where people up and down the office, the hall, were closing the doors because I wanted something done, and it required a lot of money.
Yeah.
And she reminded me of why I wasn't going to get that money to do what I had wanted done. And it got loud, not ugly, but loud.
Sure.
And at some point I stopped and I said, Jennifer, one of these days I'm going to come across this desk. And she looked up at me without batting an eye or wasting a second, said, come on, I ain't whooped nobody's butt in a long time. And I looked at her and I started laughing at that point. Of course, she started laughing, and everybody up and down the hall started laughing because everybody was hearing us.
Yeah.
But that's Jennifer.
Yeah.
And I've picked at her about that through the years. I love her to death. She has absolutely done a remarkable job in finances because politics means nothing to her.
Yeah.
Who you are means nothing to her. It's all about the numbers, all about the spreadsheets, and all about the right and wrong. And she understands and knows that. She worked for the CPA firm for 3 years prior to coming out there that audited the parish.
Yeah.
So she sort of had a leg up on what was going on with the finances, and she knew how to handle it. And she has just done an awesome job.
Fantastic.
A really good job. And that's like Sam in DPW.
Yeah.
Sam was on the police jury system. He was a former parish councilman. He was a builder. He's been in the development issues through his private life. So he understood how to talk to people and work with people and get things done. He's been awesome as well. All my directors have done a great job, and it's made my job a lot easier.
100%. And you've always done a good job of crediting your staff with.
Well, they deserve it. They really do. And look, I would not have been, quote, successful had they not done the job and the kind of job they've done. I take the blame if they mess up, which is very rare. And of course I get the credit, but I give them the credit when they do good. But the guy at the top has to kind of, you're sort of the general at the top of the heap, but I let them do their job.
Yeah.
That's the difference. I don't micromanage. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a finance director. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a DPW director. I'm certainly not a Homeland Security director, so I let them do their jobs.
Yeah.
Mark will tell you, every disaster, I'm with him 24 hours a day. I don't go home. I stay out there with him. And a lot of times he'll remind me I'm just in the way.
Yeah.
Please go stand over there. You're in my way, and pick at me about that through the years.
Sure.
But we work very well together as a team because we're like family. We've been together for so long.
Absolutely.
And so, and this is elections cycle right now, obviously, and I've been asked a lot of times about, was I going to run or not? And of course, obviously I decided not to run, and now I'm being asked who to support. I'm going to let the people decide who they want to support.
Sure.
Either one of these guys. They're both councilmen. I work with them. We'll work with them afterwards if they need me to, or get out of their way if they need me to, whatever they need me to do. But I just need people to, to give them a chance, listen to what they're saying, and to make a decision on who they want to support.
Well, and I'll tell you what, you've been through a lot in your 12 years with these disasters, things of that nature. And I'm sure either one of these guys, should they be elected, would lean on you. And I can tell you what, if I was in that position, the first disaster I had, I'm calling you saying, what would you do in my situation?
And I appreciate that. My wife picks at me all the time, what in the world are you going to do? Because I don't sleep, and I'm up at 3:30. 7 days a week, I go out to the office at 5:30, 6 in the morning. Yeah. I said, I'm going to just ask one of these guys if they'll let me keep a key and go in. I'll make coffee for them. I'll get the newspaper spread out.
Sure.
I'll open their office door, and when they get there at 7, I'll leave and go home, because I'm going to have somewhere to go. Yeah. And she said, I don't think they're going to let you do that. And I said, no, probably not. But if they need me, I'm there. I'm not going to be one of these that walks out and then criticizes or points out what they're doing wrong and those kind of things. Both of them are certainly capable.
Sure.
And I think will surround themselves hopefully with good people and do a good job for this parish. We're going to leave it in good shape for them.
Yeah.
Financially, we've built up the road program by getting that bond renewed.
Yeah.
Or by getting the sales tax renewed and the bond paid off. We're doing $15 million a year now in road work and drainage work.
Fantastic.
Which is going to be great for them coming in.
Yes.
We're redoing all the electrical issues that we had throughout the buildings, the AC, the HVAC, all those things we're getting worked out. Our bingo sales tax from the state came through last week. So now that funds the animal shelter. Now it's going to be funded through next year, which will allow either one of these guys, whichever one's elected, some time to get something done to fully fund the animal shelter. It's really up to the council to find funding. For the animal shelter. But as parish president, you sort of lead the way, and people assume it's up to you, but it is up to the council to do that. But this gives them some room and some time to do that, whether it be, people don't want to pay another tax, but whatever mechanism they come up with to fund it, this will give them some time to do that. And so I was very thankful for that.
And a concern, one thing I do want to ask you, two kind of a multifold question. This is the first election in which, in a while, that you haven't, at this point in the process with early voting coming up on the 30th. I mean, it's right around the corner. It's been a while since you haven't been campaigning during this time. How's that been for you? A relief or just strange?
I was kind of getting, to be honest with you, I felt like I was kind of getting pulled in the middle because I think there were a lot of people that was hoping I would get back in or would get in the race and qualify, which kind of led these two guys to be a little bit leery about whether I was going to do that or not. And so I was getting kind of bashed in the media a little bit about, of course, the subdivision, the zoning issue, creating a little bit of a difference between us in case I decided to run again, I guess. And I kept making it clear I'm not running. And then I think one of them thought, well, maybe he's going to help the other guy and maybe endorse one or the other one. And so I was getting pulled in the middle to the point I told my wife, God, I should have just went on and run. I feel like I'm in a campaign when I'm not even running, when I really had hoped to just be able to relax the last 6 months of this year and kind of enjoy all the things that we've accomplished through the years and really set the stage for these guys, whichever one comes in, to hit the ground running.
Yeah.
But it's settled down now that qualifying is over, and obviously I just didn't run. And I'm not going to endorse either one of these candidates because I don't think it's fair to the other one. And I do work with both of these guys.
Right.
And I've said this before. Mr. Ard works, Jeff's dad works for me.
Yep.
And Randy's wife, Dee Dee, works for me. She's one of the permit director. And they both, have been there for a long time. So I didn't want to get in the middle of them.
Right.
And I think a lot of people too kind of felt like maybe they could help push me to getting back in the race. I didn't want to do that either. I'm ready to go home. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't want to go home and just sit for 24 hours a day. But at the same time, 12 years, it's really been, look, I've been very blessed. We've had a lot of disasters. That's true. But we've had a lot of good things happen through the parish, and we've had a lot of growth. Cook Road Extension is one of those that keeps coming up because it actually won't be able to be driven on, I don't think, until the spring of 2025. But it started back in 2008, 2011, 2012. We hit the ground running with it when we got elected, and it's under construction.
Yes.
Some 12,
that was a big deal.
I mean, look, there had not been any bridge work. We're on our 22nd bridge that we're replacing or redoing.
Wow.
And we didn't even know about that program when we ran in 2011.
Yeah.
And in 2012, the state told us, said, look, y'all are about to lose the funding for the state bridge program. What are you talking about? We didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
And they reminded us of some funding that had never been utilized. Well, we've tapped into it every year. And so we're on our 22nd bridge now.
Wow.
And people don't, I mean, a lot of this stuff I don't go out and talk a lot about, but it's things that we've been able to get accomplished. And the Juba North Extension is underway. That's going to be one of those roads. Now, it's probably going to be another 8 to 10 years before it's done. But you got to start the process.
Got to start somewhere.
We've started it.
Yeah.
And our local delegation has helped with funding, capital outlay, throughout capital outlay. We've had a lot of help from all across the parish in probably every aspect of the work we've done throughout the parish. We've had a lot of volunteers that have pitched in disasters that's helped us through those.
Sure.
As well as obviously all the groups that you call in. And so we've worked well, I think, with parish and state and federal officials. We've been to D.C. several times. I've got a great relationship with most of our delegation.
And very important.
So it's important to have that. It's important in this position to understand you're not going to get everything you want. And a lot of times that's very frustrating.
Sure.
The thing that I had to learn that I still have to have trouble with, Jim, is that in parish government, state government, local government, it takes forever to get something done, even when everybody's on board with it. Well, in parish, as a parish president, you really can only do so much. People assume you can wave a magic wand, make things happen, or by the same token, stop things from happening. And it's just not that simple. You have a check-balance system, and that's called the legislative body, which is the council. And so you have to go through all these different processes to get stuff done. But even when everybody agrees, then you got funding sources you have to get approved through, and all sorts of red tape to get stuff done.
Sure.
So it's not simple. It's not easy. And the good news for both of these guys that are running for the people in the parish is both of them are aware of that because they're on the council.
Yeah.
So they know that it takes a while to get things done, and hopefully they'll have the patience to endure that and work with the council to get it done. I've been blessed with this council.
Yes.
We work very well together by and large. What differences we've had, we've been able to work through for the most part. My first term was pretty tough with things with that council. We got through a lot of that. These last two terms have been, of course, we didn't have an opponent in either election, and that was nice.
Yeah.
But the council itself has been great. Yeah, that's always great. Have been good to work with, and we've gotten a lot of things done. And I have to give the council credit because they have supported us by and large. And we've only done 2 or 3 different vetoes through the years, and they've not overridden those.
Sure.
And so we've been very trying to do everything we can to work with the council on things that, because here's the difference. A lot of times the council has a group of people in front of them that are pushing and shoving on them to do something.
Yes.
And so they'll get with their counterparts and get that done. Well, I may or may not agree necessarily as parish president.
Sure.
But unless it's just really something that I think is going to cause an issue, I'll support it because I know it's what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I know what it's like to have that group of people in front of them. The moratorium was one of those issues where I knew the first moratorium was going to cause us a lot of problems from a legal standpoint. Our attorneys had already told us that. And so I knew I was going to have to veto it. And I didn't like the length of it. But the second go around, and Mr. Ard came up with an answer for that. They dropped it down to the first meeting or second meeting in January for the new council and the new parish president to make a decision on whether they wanted to move forward. And they put a backdoor approach that dealt with the federal end of it to where that we weren't going to be challenged in court on it.
Yeah.
And Mr. Villavasso had some input in that, which is our expert planner. So while I don't personally like moratoriums, in talking to the realtors and talking to builders, talking to some of the council members, I decided to support it versus vetoing that second moratorium.
Yeah.
So that gives them a little time to get the zoning issues resolved and get them in place, hopefully between now and the end of next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I also thought that was a great thing that Jeff Ard came up with. I liked the time frame relative to a new council coming in, a new parish president coming in. They can always extend that if they choose to. But I felt like it was it was within a reasonable amount of time. I'm like you, a year. Well,
we're a rural parish, and we have a lot of builders, and we have a lot of our friends that we go to church with, that we go to restaurants with, play ball with. Our kids play ball, grandkids. These are your builders. I mean, the concrete finishers and the painters and the roofers and all the sheetrock finishers. All of these people that are living in our parish, we were fixing to basically just shut them down.
Yeah.
And again, the legal challenges, I felt like by doing it like it's done now, we prevented the taxpayers from having to spend more money on lawsuits and fighting lawsuits, because we would have been challenged on that first moratorium, and we would have lost. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So while I may not personally like a moratorium, I do think what they came up with the second round was certainly something I could support and did.
Yes.
And I compliment the council, certainly Councilman Ard for coming up with that compromise, because the attorney signed off on it, and Mr. Villavasso, when I spoke to him, said, I think this is, because they can legally extend it if they decide to next year.
Absolutely. And, when you look back, I'm curious to know, when you look back on when you first came into office, this was 2012?
2012.
So you had a brand new council for the most part at that point. At that time, you have a new parish president, and you kind of, not only did you have to learn all the ins and outs of this thing, but you also have to learn different people and you try to work with them for the betterment of the parish, those sorts of things. And you had some goals at that time. One of them I know that totally blew my mind when I heard you say it, so I'm sure it blew your mind when you found it out, was the animal shelter, the expense of that.
Oh, my God.
Unbelievable.
Well, Jim, it's funny and again, I didn't know. Now these two guys that are running, they've got some insight because they've been on the council. But when we ran, we just knew there were two or three things that we wanted to do. We wanted to get the Juban Mall up and running, because we kept hearing about it, but we were seeing no action on it. And so that was a goal. The Cook Road extension was something that, because I had come from Alvin Farabeen's office and knew about it, I knew how important it was to the mall. I knew the connections there. I wanted to try to make that happen. The animal control, animal shelter was a huge thing that I ran on. And then uniting the parish, because I'd always heard about the left and the right and the east versus the west end of the two parishes. Let's make it one parish. Well, I of course, got elected, and I learned real quick. We had a meeting of all, I think there were like 8 or 9 parish presidents a few months after getting elected in 2012, and we were at lunch, and they all were laughing at me because we were talking about some of our goals. They were all reelected, and I was newly elected. And we were talking about the animal shelter, and every one of them across the board said, if you could run from that issue, if we could give you any advice, run from it. You
Yeah.
can't, but
Yeah.
if you could, we would tell you run from it. And I said, why? Because you're going to need anywhere from 1.2 million to 1.7 million. This is in 2012.
Wow.
To operate. I said, no. I said, we already got. They said, check your state laws on it. Well, I found out what they were talking about. To have a fully funded animal control center, animal shelter, you've got to do what state law requires. You've got to have property. You've got to have a building. You've got to be able to take more than dogs and cats. If somebody calls you about a mule, a horse,
Yeah.
a giraffe, a goat, whatever it may be, you got to be able to handle it. You got
Wow.
to take care of it. Well, I had no clue about that.
Yeah.
And I thought people all over the place were going to support this. So the first thing I did was put a committee together, and I put a couple of good friends of mine on there that loved animals inside out.
Yeah.
I won't call their names. Of course, I'm sure most people probably remember. And she got heavily involved in it. And then I put someone on the other end of the spectrum on there that had been involved with past administration with the animal shelter out there. And we learned.
Yeah.
50% of the people don't want it. 50% of the people say you got to have it. And 50% of that 50% said, but we got a bullet that will take care of it.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, my God, what are we looking at here? Well, what I learned was nobody wants to pay for an extra sales tax, extra millage to support an animal shelter.
Right.
Drainage and roads, no matter what poll you take. And we all know animals is a problem in Livingston Parish
Sure.
and probably everywhere else.
Sure.
But we know how huge it is. But every poll you ever take, it comes down to drainage and roads and drainage.
Yeah.
First and second, always. And so how do you do this? Well, to make a long story short, I got my behind handed to me.
Yeah.
Because we found out people aren't going to pass it.
Yeah.
Well, here we are now in 2023, 12 years in office, and people still feel the same way. Because I'm all over the parish and I talk to people. We have to do something.
Yes.
And so we have found a way through the years to limp along to keep maintaining what we have been doing.
Sure.
And we've made some improvements, a lot of improvements to the animal shelter, but we're nowhere near fully funding an animal shelter, animal control. It's going to take a millage, a fee of some sort through the legislative body. You're going to have to. We thought, well, okay, maybe we can impose fees on dog food and cat food.
Yeah.
That's only a portion of what you need, and then you got every hunting group out here that did not want that because they're the ones with large packs of dogs because they hunt and all these kind of things.
A lot of big hunters out here.
A lot of big hunters.
Yeah.
And so everywhere we turned, we were running into a roadblock. So then we just started finding a way to try to keep going like we were going and hopefully do the best we could. And these two guys are talking about different things too, and I wish them luck and hope that they can do it. That's why I was so excited when the state finally came through with this other tax revenue, because that will at least give them 12 months to try to find some way to get something done.
Yeah.
And right now both are saying they've got an answer, so I hope they do, and I really do hope they do because
Sure.
something does have to be done, and I know it does.
Yeah.
It's not that we didn't care.
Right.
My administrative assistant, Miss Mary, she is the kind of person that will pick a mosquito up and take it outside versus killing it.
Yeah.
So don't think I haven't had pressure on me just about every day to do something.
Yeah.
And we have done some things, but nothing like what needs to be done. But I did run on that, and obviously that still needs to be done.
Yeah.
The road work, getting the sales tax renewed, we were able to do that. Another thing that I had run on that I was hoping to be able to do was move DPW out from under the road program.
Yes.
The previous administration had set that up. Well, I now know why they had set it up like that. There was no other funding source to have the kind of DPW department that you really need for potholes and all these other things.
Sure.
And we've got roughly 60 DPW workers. Jim, we need 120.
Yeah.
So there's been some talk, and I did some talk too about possibly privatizing some of it, bringing some, moving in that direction. I decided against that because I just felt like we could use those dollars more on drainage. And that was another thing that came up on how to maybe take some dollars away from something else to move toward the animal shelter. I'm not willing to take it away from drainage and roads. I just was never willing to do that. because I think we need every dollar. Again, every poll shows that that's primarily what people are concerned about. Not that the other's not important, it is, but that's primary.
Yeah.
And that's an everyday battle. And I've said this before, out of the 100+ million that we've been able to secure to do drainage work and road work, probably roughly 110, 120 million. If I've not done anything in front of your house, or if I haven't solved the drainage behind your house, as far as you're concerned, I've done nothing with that money.
Right.
And that's human nature.
Yeah.
I'm not pointing blame or fault at anybody. And we haven't done it for everybody.
Yeah.
We've done everything we could for as many as we could. But that's a battle that will be ongoing in Livingston Parish because of how our landscape is set from now till doomsday.
Absolutely.
That will never, ever go away. But I think it's important, too, to look at people you're electing across the board, across the state, as representatives, as governor, on down, to hopefully help keep funding sources coming for Livingston Parish. As you know, I stepped out and endorsed Jeff Landry for governor. I did that based on several conversations. I know he will continue to work hard for the people in Livingston Parish. I know he's tough on crime. I don't want to see crime come into our parish because that hurts us in all kind of different ways. And so I think he's the best man for that job.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of other important elections, but I think Jeff will make sure that Livingston Parish can get every dollar it needs, and that's important to me. Even though I'm going out of office, it's going to be important for the people in the parish.
Yeah.
Because again, while I might not have philosophically agreed with Governor Edwards on all of his decisions, as far as him being a Democrat, me being a Republican, I'm very thankful and very blessed that we had the personal relationship we had, that he funded us out here to the degree that he did, because he didn't have to.
Right.
Remember, and a lot of people don't understand this, they hear a lot of you congressmen and senators talk about funding and money they're getting from Washington, D.C. to the state of Louisiana. But in most cases, the governor gets to decide at the end of the day where that money goes.
Yeah.
And what direction and how it's split. So I'm very, very thankful for the relationship that I had with him prior to him running, and that we just built on since he's been in office.
Absolutely. And it's important that the public may not realize you can philosophically disagree with someone, or maybe they're on a different, like you say, spectrum of politics and or core beliefs or whatever. But if you don't have some sort of operating relationship with them in a mutual respect, it can spell disaster for you as far as a parish. In your case, you got to get along with people, maybe even if you don't agree with them necessarily philosophically.
Absolutely. And look, you have to, in this position, and it's tough sometimes because we're all human.
Sure.
And, we talked before about social media, and I know I made some references to social media before, but it's tough when you see or read or hear things that, first of all, aren't true.
Yeah.
And secondly, you understand and know that your kids and your grandkids see this and read this. And although they know it's not true, it's still it can't help but hurt you and affect you. So when you're in this position, you've got to learn to kind of set that aside, because you still have to work with these people.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you're still working for those people.
Yeah.
I never lost sight of that. I truly didn't. I get aggravated just like everybody else.
Sure.
And sometimes I have to take a deep breath, and I rely on my faith a lot, because sometimes I've made the comment, and I've told Miss Mary several times, I don't know whether to bail off the top of this blue roof upside down or not. And I said, and unfortunately, I got some people out here that would love to see me bail off this thing upside down. But thankfully, I got a large group that support us,
Yeah.
And so you got to weigh all those things out. I know of very, very few people that I can't sit down with and talk to. And we may disagree at the end of the day. My wife and I have talked about this several times through the years, Jim. We learned, and you heard this old saying through the years, you learn who your friends are. Mm-hmm. And we learned initially when we started running, people that we thought would be on our side, would be our friends, for whatever reason weren't. But at the same time, we made a lot of new friends.
Sure.
And then a lot of those people have come back around and become great friends. And we've made good friends who with people who were absolutely against us in 2011.
Yeah.
But it was the difference in the politics.
That's right.
Not me personally, and certainly not them personally. A lot of people never knew this, although I talked about it some. Mike Grimmer and I were never enemies prior to me running in 2011.
Yeah.
We were acquaintances. We knew one another. We sat together at different political functions. We weren't social friends, but we were not enemies at all. And so I had hoped, that we would be able to maintain that. I was not able to contact him because of how things finally got through the election. And that's why I go back to what I said earlier. If either one of these guys, whichever one of the guys win, want to contact me or want me to help in any way, I'll be there for them. If they need me to just stay out of their way, I'll be happy to do that as well. Yeah. Because that's the last thing they'll need is for me to be on their heels, talking about them, and I'm not going to do that. Yeah. Because I know what it's like to walk in that door. People used to ask me, how did you know how to become a parish president? And I said, well, the only thing I can tell you, and I've told it many times before, is when I walked in that back door and started up those steps, I signed 2 checks and I signed 3 pieces of paper, and I asked Miss Mary, who was walking with me, please find out what I just signed, because I had no clue. And I said that was my first hour on the job. Yeah. And I was actually on my way up the stairs to my office to meet my mom and dad, who were coming up the elevator, just to show them my office. And that's how my career as a parish president started. That's when I first figured it out. Story. And so she did. She went and found out what we signed, and we made sure and verified everything, just so people don't think I just signed something and didn't know. We did find out what it was. And look, I still learn. Yeah. And you're talking about working with people. It's an art of compromise. And I've heard people make comments about, they sell out. The politicians sell out and they get money and all that. That, for the most part, none of that's true. Yeah. What is true is that it is an art of compromise. You're not going to get everything you want. We're not dictators out here. Yeah. We have a check balance system. We're set up and designed for the right reasons to be like that. Sure. I don't get everything I want. Yeah. I don't get to dictate to the council everything I want. I get to talk to them. They talk to me. I try to go along with them. They try to work with me. We've had a great working relationship. But it's not 100% across the board from either side. Yeah. And so you have to learn to work with people for the betterment of everybody in the parish. So you have to give up sometimes in order to get the big prize. Absolutely. And you have to learn to do that without taking it. And look, and it's hard for me just like it is anybody else. But you have to learn to do that without taking it so personal sometimes. Mm-hmm. And again, if I'm being perfectly honest, I wear my feelings on my shoulders a lot of times. Sure. I'm like my mom. I'm sorry, that's how I am. Yeah. I got it from her. She was the same way, and I'm like that. I worry. I'm a natural worrier. I worry about things. People think sometimes because you don't do something real quick, you don't care. Everybody that I know of, including the council members, whether I agree with them or don't agree with them, care. Yes. They're out there to do a good job for the people in their district, for the people overall in the parish. And sometimes I think that gets lost in some of the ugliness of politics. But I think everybody out there has done a really good job. Yeah, I really would agree. It's people don't realize, or some people may not realize that the way that our system of government here is set up, you administrate what the council approves. Yes, you do have a veto power, but then they've got a veto power on top of that to override your veto if they get enough votes. So it's really even when a moratorium is set, it's set by the council, and then even if you veto that, they can come back and override that veto. Absolutely. So the power really lies in the legislative side of the council. It does, Jim, and people really look. I'll admit I've lost a couple of friends through this Deer Run subdivision issue. Yeah. But that all I've done is done what my attorneys have advised me to do, and the council has done the best it could, and they passed that on to the planning commission, which approved it. And the only thing I've ever said about Deer Run is, look, I don't like big subdivisions any more than anybody else does. But if they meet the ordinance, and they're following state law, and they followed all the law, then they need to be able to move forward. Yeah. If that's not the case, they should have been denied, but they weren't denied. They were approved, not only by the council but by the planning. But I've had some friends of mine that they're upset because they felt like I could have stopped it. No, I couldn't. Yeah. But I had some people on the other end that felt like I could have pushed it through and it would be built by now. I can't do that either. So I kind of got caught up in the middle of that because I made some comments like I just said that my position is, based on my attorney, is if they've met it, they should move forward.
Absolutely.
And I've tried to do that across the board with everything the council has done. And I do feel like they've done a good job.
Sure.
And it's not easy when you've got a group of people in front of you.
Right.
Because as you know, most of the time, the people who are against something are loud, bold, and strong. And the ones that are for it are just assuming they're at home, assuming you're going to do the right thing and do what you're supposed to do. It makes it very difficult on a council member.
That's exactly.
A councilman.
Right.
My role is to support them I think for the most part we have, as best I can, unless I have to use the veto for some reason.
Yeah.
And then you got to talk to them to make sure they don't override it, or hopefully that they don't override it, because that is their option to override.
Sure.
So I think by and large, if people really stopped and looked at what the council has been through the last 2 or 3 years on ordinances and subdivisions, subdivision restrictions, now dealing with zoning, they've taken on a lot.
Yeah.
I do think zoning needs to be rescinded the way it was originally done. I know Mr. Villavasso feels that way. I don't know that they're going to do it. That, again, is a council decision.
Sure.
But I do think they need to do that so that it can't be challenged in court.
Yeah.
Let Mr. Villavasso get it in place, working with planning. He's in the process of doing that now. I've asked him to do what he knows he needs to do to make this as bulletproof as he possibly can.
Yeah.
Don't do it my way. Don't do it her way. Don't do it his way. Do it the way you know it's supposed to be done. And he has basically assured me he would do it no other way than that.
Yeah.
Or he won't be here. So, and I appreciate that about
Sure.
him. I've gained a lot of respect. I didn't know him. They suggested him. We hired him. But I am quite impressed with his knowledge. He teaches it. He understands it. He knows what it's going to take to get it done. Unfortunately, it may bleed over into next year before it's done. So I hope the new parish president and new council will allow him to move forward and continue to get it done. Because once you get that in place, I think that's going to address most of the issues that the council has not been able to do through the ordinance.
Absolutely.
They've done a lot through their ordinance.
Yeah.
They really have. I don't think they're getting enough credit for the hard work that they've gone through to get their ordinance as tight as they have. I personally think it's a little too tight. But under the circumstances, look, they got
a strong ordinance.
It's a strong ordinance, and I give them credit for working through it, compromising, and coming up with an ordinance that I think addresses a lot of issues for growth. You have to grow.
Yeah.
Look, you don't have to grow at a rapid rate, but it's like any business. And I've talked to a lot of builders. I've talked to a lot of business owners. I've talked to a lot of members of the chamber. And got their input on a lot of this stuff, and for the most part have agreed. I mean, it's like any business. You either stagnate and die or you continue to grow. Yeah. But like anybody, if you run into roadblocks, you got to back up and punt and regroup and go again. But you don't just shut it down. You don't just stop. You find a way to do it and do it responsible. And I think that's what the council is in the process and has done with their ordinance, and I think they're in the process of getting it done with zoning now.
I agree.
So I'm happy about that. Again, personally, I've made the comment before, coming from Kentwood, being in Denham Springs all these years, I wish people could just do what they want to with their property.
Sure.
But unfortunately, with the rate that the parish has grown, that's no longer possible. Yeah. So there has to be some restrictions, and there has to be some zoning put in place. It protects our people first and foremost, but it also protects those who do want to make an investment in Livingston Parish.
That's right.
So I think by and large it's going to get done. He'll get a lot of it done before the end of the year, he's assured me, but it's most likely going to run into next year before it's completed.
Very good. And you had some maps that you had showed me prior to the podcast here, and they were of the cleanup that's going to be taking place on the Amy River.
Oh my God, yes. They're going to go.
We're going to pop those up, incidentally. People,
yeah, and look, when you look at that map and see the amount of work that we've been able to do, it's impressive.
Yeah.
And I'm not bragging on me. I'm bragging again on all those who've done the work. Again, I have to give Homeland Security Director Grant Director Mark Harrell most of the credit for working with all these different agencies to make sure this gets done. He knew I wanted this done before we left office.
Yeah.
He knew about the complaints I get. I go to him every time somebody calls me, and he gets it. He understands because when somebody calls me with a problem, I'm calling whoever I need to call.
Oh, sure.
You know, and again, like I said, if you're still getting water, you're not worried about the $100 million I spent over here with somebody else. You know,
Right.
you're still calling and you want something done.
That's right.
But this latest project that's starting now is one we've been working on and hoping to get approved. And the Army Corps of Engineers finally gave him the permits. It's the clearing and snagging. It'll start down in Port Vincent, go all the way up to the St. Helena line.
Wow.
And it's going to be parts of the Old River, the Pettit A Meat, parts of the Blind River, and you know, it's going to be done by the cubic yard. We're estimating somewhere around 15 million.
Okay.
We think it's going to probably top that by the time they get through because there's just basically been no work done.
Yeah.
On the A Meat. This is going to be, again, as I said earlier, Jim, I think huge.
That's a big deal.
You know, by the time you do the co-meat and they do the clean outs under the interstate that we were able to get the governor to fund for us, and you do this down on the A Meat, even if you reduce the flooding by 6 inches, do you know how many people's homes got water an inch, 3 inches,
Yeah.
4 or 5 inches? Where 6 inches don't sound like a lot, 3 inches don't sound like a lot, it's huge for a lot of people.
Sure.
We all know our flood insurance rates are going up. We can't get them to back down off of that yet. So every dollar we can save people by having to repair their homes and all these other things, I think is well spent.
Absolutely.
So this I think is a huge project for the parish.
Yeah, I agree, and you know, it'll take a little while to get all that cleaned out and everything. But like you say, virtually no work's been done on that end, and something that you know, a heck of a thing to start as you're going out as kind of a crescendo to you know, so many things.
Well, we've got a lot going on, and a lot of it will not be completed before I get out of office. But that's okay. We know we've gotten it going and gotten it started, and it's all for the people anyway.
Yeah.
So, but what it will do is help the new guy coming in to hit the ground running and hopefully be very successful. And I've always said this, you know, you want to leave it better than you found it. We're doing that. I'm convinced of that. And I hope the next one that comes in will leave it better than he's found it when he steps out of office.
Yeah, don't mess it all up.
Well, I don't want to say it like that, but yeah, I mean, take it and run with it and do even more than what we've done. And look, there comes a point in time, I'm tired. I mean, you know, my health is still good, and all people ask all the time, you know, has the cancer come back? No, I'm healthy. I feel good. But I did just turn 69, and I want to spend time with my wife and grandkids without having to leave, and of course the day in and day out stress of worrying about the parish all day, every day. And that's, again, some people have the ability not to worry. I'm a natural worrier, as I said earlier, so I do worry about it. There may be a few people that would disagree with me on that, but I do, believe it or not. And I'm always concerned. I mean, anytime you get a phone call of a problem or an issue, it worries me and it concerns me. And so we try to make sure we take care of all of that the best we can.
Yeah.
And so to not have that on me is going to be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I personally feel like you've done a great job. Y'all have had things thrown at you since you've been in office that thank God we had people in positions that we had them in at that point in time in this parish that could handle that. And I mean that you know, that flood was no joke.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Folks, if you lived through that and you were here during that time, it was like nothing you've ever seen in your life.
Look, Jim, Mark and I have talked about this, and we'll both break down talking about it when we talk about it with each other. I saw this get to Mark where I've seen all these other things not, but after several days, it was tearing us up.
Yeah.
Because it was just so much. It was so much of it, and we were having to move so many people. But I tell you what I did see, and I half picking and half joking, but very serious at the same time. I saw people in neighborhoods and subdivisions of all different backgrounds, some who and I certainly won't call names, but some who I knew didn't like one another, come together and work together to put this parish back together.
Amen.
To help their neighbors rebuild, get back together, work very hard for one another. These different volunteers, these different groups that all came together. And I've talked about this a little bit through the years. When you watch in the EOC what goes on in a disaster, what really is frustrating and is aggravating, and I understand it's human nature, when you're hurting and you've lost and you're sitting out here not knowing what people are doing to help you, you just wonder what are they doing. But when you're in the EOC and you're watching how people operate, all the different agencies, the Sheriff's Department, the National Guard, the Red Cross, the different church volunteers, our employees around the clock, my wife with me around the clock out there answering the phones, and I can remember to this day some of the employees saying, "Why are you out here?" I mean, you and she said, "Because I'm out here with my husband helping."
Amen.
And it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing really to watch how things get done and to watch Mark operate, directing, and then to see. And I had phone calls from people who were dead set against me in 2011. With their grandkids in the attic. Can you come get us? Yeah. Well, yeah, but will you? What? Yes. Yeah. And who now are friends that thought maybe the politics would prevent us from reacting. You put all that aside in these disasters. Yeah. And that's when you see the good in people. That's when you know that we're all in this together. And God works in mysterious ways. Does he cause these things to make those kind of good things happen? I don't know, but I do know this. You see the good in people when tragedy hits and disasters come, and I've been very blessed. Yeah, very, very
love
blessed.
It. And I say it all the time, when people ask me about that and that experience, I always tell them it was the worst thing I've ever seen and the most beautiful thing I've ever seen all at the same time.
That sums it up.
It really does. Thank you for all.
My pleasure.
All
Thank you
you've
for
done
having me. Thank you for having me this morning.
For this parish.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And again, I give credit to all my employees. They have been wonderful to work with all these years. I think we're going out on a high note, Jim. And leaving it better than we found it, and that's been our goal.
That's all we can ask for. Yeah. I appreciate you. You're
a
friend of me.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And we will see you next time on Local Leaders, the podcast. Remember to love your community, support local business, and keep leading. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.